I think one of the things that really separates us from the high primates is that we're tool builders. And I read a study that measured the efficiency of locomotion for various species on the planet. The condor used the least energy to move a kilometer. And humans came in with a rather unimpressive showing about a third of the way down the list. It was not too proud of a showing for the crown of creation. So that didn't look so good, but then somebody at Scientific American had the insight to test the efficiency of locomotion for a man on a bicycle. And a man on a bicycle, or a human on a bicycle, blew the condor away, completely off the top of the charts. And that's what a computer is to me. What a computer is to me is it's the most remarkable tool that we've ever come up with. And it's the equivalent of a bicycle for our minds.
This is Steve Jobs.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years.
He is a genius.
In 1984, we introduced the Macintosh. In 2001, we introduced the first iPod.
Alan Kay, an early software pioneer, once said that people who are really serious about software should make their own hardware. That was over 25 years ago. Stephen Paul Jobs took that philosophy and is now the co-founder and current CEO of Apple Inc. Steve Jobs is the man behind it all. Jobs was born in San Francisco and later attended high school at Cupertino High in Cupertino, California. He attended Reed College in Portland, Oregon, and dropped out after one semester. He returned back to Cupertino and met Steve Wozniak for the very first time and attended Homebrew Club with him. He received a job at Atari, an early video game company. He obtained this job for the sole reason to acquire money to travel to India. It was during this time in India at which Steve converted to Buddhism and experimented with LSD. He has stated that this experience with psychedelics is one of the most important things that has happened in his life. Soon enough, Jobs and Woz partnered up and created Apple Computer Inc. They invented the Apple I, as you saw with Adam's presentation, and the much more popular Apple II. Many more versions followed. In 1983, Jobs decided he needed someone to manage the company and tracked down John Scully, who worked for Pepsi-Cola. He lured him to Apple by saying, "Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water to children, or do you want a chance to change the world?" The following year, Apple released this commercial.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the information purification directives. Created for the first time in all history a garden of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom, secure from the pests of any contradictory force. Unification of the force is more powerful a weapon than any fleet or army on earth. We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
People were ecstatic. The Macintosh became the first commercially successful small computer with a graphical user interface. The development of the Mac was started by Jeff Raskin and eventually taken over by Jobs. While Jobs was a persuasive and charismatic director for Apple, some of his employees from that time had described him as an erratic and temperamental manager, basically an asshole. An industry-wide sales slump towards the end of 1984 caused a deterioration in Jobs' working relationship with Scully, and at the end of May 1985, following an internal power struggle and an announcement of significant layoffs, Jobs was given the hammer. Jobs went on to start a new company, Next Computer. The computers he produced were expensive and nobody really bought it. He also decided to buy a little company which is now known as Pixar Animation Studios. He held on to them for 20 years and sold them to Disney in 2006. Apple, back in 1996, purchased Next Computer, therefore purchasing back Jobs. Steve still works for Apple now. However, throughout the past 2 years, Steve has developed mysterious health problems. His attorney has stated that it was no more than a common bug and it wasn't life-threatening. However, in 2008, rumors of his death arose, but Jobs quickly shot them down. On January 5th, 2009, Steve announced that his health-related issues were more serious than he thought, and announced a 6-month leave of absence until the end of June 2009. He is still away and there is no word on how he is doing. So that's Steve. He is the brain behind the iPod, iPhone, and Macintosh. He was also the CEO of Pixar Animation Studios for some time. He is generally credited as the pioneer of the tactical mouse interface. The mouse that you have on your computer at home would not be there if it weren't for Steve Jobs. He's known to be very persuasive, and he's known to be a big jerk too. He's also known to have a big ego. Overall, Steve wanted to change the world, and he's done just that.
To me, marketing is about values. This is a very complicated world. It's a very noisy world. And we're not going to get a chance to get people to remember much about us. No company is. And so we have to be really clear on what we want them to know about us. Now, Apple, fortunately, is one of the half a dozen best brands in the whole world. Right up there with Nike, Disney, Coke, Sony. It is one of the greats of the greats. Not just in this country, but all around the globe. But even a great brand needs investment and caring if it's going to retain its relevance and vitality. And the Apple brand has clearly suffered from neglect in this area in the last few years. And we need to bring it back. The way to do that is not to talk about speeds and feeds. It's not to talk about MIPS and megahertz. It's not to talk about why we're better than Windows. The dairy industry tried for 20 years to convince you that milk was good for you. It's a lie, but they tried anyway. And the sales were going like this. And then they tried Got Milk, and the sales are going like this. Got Milk doesn't even talk about the product. Matter of fact, it focuses on the absence of the product. But the best example of all, and one of the greatest jobs of marketing the universe has ever seen is Nike. Remember, Nike sells a commodity. They sell shoes. And yet, when you think of Nike, you feel something different than a shoe company. In their ads, as you know, they don't ever talk about the product. They don't ever tell you about their air soles and why they're better than Reebok's air soles. What does Nike do in their advertising? They honor great athletes, and they honor great athletics. That's who they are. That's what they are about. Apple spends a fortune on advertising. You'd never know it. You'd never know it. So, when I got here, Apple just fired their agency. We were doing a competition with 23 agencies that, 4 years from now would pick one. And we blew that up, and we hired Chiat/Day, the ad agency that I was fortunate enough to work with years ago. We created some award-winning work, including the commercial voted the best ad ever made in 1984 by advertising professionals. And we started working about 8 weeks ago. And the question we asked was, our customers want to know who is Apple and what is it that we stand for? Where do we fit in this world? And what we're about isn't making boxes for people to get their jobs done, although we do that well. We do that better than almost anybody in some cases. But Apple's about something more than that. Apple, at the core, its core value, is that we believe that people with passion can change the world for the better. That's what we believe. And we've had the opportunity to work with people like that. We've had an opportunity to work with people like you, with software developers, with customers who have done it in some big and some small ways. And we believe that in this world, people can change it for the better. And that those people that are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that actually do. And so what we're going to do in our first brand marketing campaign in several years is to get back to that core value. A lot of things have changed. The market's a totally different place than it was a decade ago. And Apple's totally different, and Apple's place in it is totally different. And believe me, the products and the distribution strategy and the manufacturing are totally different, and we understand that. But values and core values, those things shouldn't change. The things that Apple believed in at its core are the same things that Apple really stands for today. And so we wanted to find a way to communicate this. And what we have is something that I'm very moved by. It honors those people who have changed the world. Some of them are living, some of them are not. But the ones that aren't, as you'll see, you know that if they'd ever used a computer, it would have been a Mac. And the theme of the campaign is Think Different. It's the people, honoring the people who think different and who move this world forward. And it is what we are about. It touches the soul of this company. So I'm going to go ahead and roll it, and I hope that you feel the same way about it I do.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.